Hello, what's going on, everyone? Thank you so much for joining me here this morning on Narcissism 101 Cracking the Code with me, Paul Wisdom. Good morning. Hope everybody's having a great Tuesday morning so far. I know it's almost the afternoon. Time flies by so quickly. But thank you so much for being here, everyone. Before we get into what we're going to talk about today, if you would like a one-on-one session as usual, please email me, paul.wisdom_03 at hotmail.com, or you can send a text message to 647-406-3057. If you want to talk, if you want to vent, if you need some more advice, if you're trying to figure out whether the person you're dealing with is in fact a narcissist or not, please feel free to reach out to me. Like I say in every video, if you want to call, please send a text to the number first and let me know your name and that you've been watching my videos for quite some time, and that I can help you out. If you just call my number, I just may block the number just if there's no message with it, just because I just don't answer random numbers from random people, just because, as you guys know, there are predators out there. There are people that just want access to information about you, so you just need to be careful with that, and that is the reason why I say text me first. But what we're going to talk about today, and just keep those things in mind. But what we're going to talk about today, and the title of this video, it's a good one, and I know you guys are going to like this one. Pattern recognition slash can you spot the narcissist in public? This topic was actually what I said I was going to talk about in my next video, in my last video. So yeah, that's what we're going to talk about today. Pattern recognition, can you spot the narcissist in public? Okay, so here we go. Pattern recognition. When we're talking about pattern recognition, what we're talking about and referring to is recognizing patterns when trying to identify whether somebody is a narcissist or not, or whether you're trying to just, define something or figure out something. You look for patterns, right? And it's the same thing with narcissists, right? When you're trying to figure out whether someone's a narcissist or not. And for this video, I just want to mention, it's very important. This is why we don't assume things, right? We don't just go around saying, oh, this person's a narcissist, that person's a narcissist. We don't do things like that because, one, if you do that, you're just showing that you don't know, you probably don't even know what a narcissist is. You're just throwing the word around, which is what a lot of people are doing these days. The word narcissist is at the forefront, and more people are starting to use that word, and they don't have to have them don't even know what it means. But when we're talking about narcissists, there are a lot of patterns, and there are a lot of ways that you can easily identify a person who's a narcissist, and you can differentiate them from somebody who's toxic, somebody who maybe just has some challenges or a disorder of some sort, which is okay because some people are born with disorders, some people are born with challenges because of their upbringing, and it's all understandable because it's just a fact of life. We're all different. But when we're talking about narcissists, and you're looking for patterns, you have to go down the list of things of what potentially makes somebody a narcissist. Right now, when you're looking down these things, I'm not trying to say carry around a dictionary of all the words in the glossary of on narcissism, and then go look at every person that you look at, and then just start going down that list and trying to figure out if they're narcissists or not. That's not what I'm saying at all. And if you got that, then I'm sorry, discard that because that's not what I'm saying at all for this video. What I am saying though is that you have to when you're having a difficult time with somebody, right? When somebody is giving you a hard time, right? When you're trying to figure out why this person is acting this way towards you and you didn't do anything to them, right? When you're trying to figure out why this person is ghosting you out of nowhere and everything seemed to be going so well with you guys and they just ghost you like that, or when somebody, when you have facts, to back up, why you feel a certain way, and then the person just invalidates your facts and then makes you feel bad about how you feel, then those are all times when you can start, asking the question, is this person a narcissist, right? Because then you're trying to figure out, why this person is acting the way that they're acting towards you, right? So, pattern recognition, right? When you're out in public, this relates to also when you're out in public as well. Many people have a tendency, especially when it comes to like on the news and things like that, many people have a tendency to blow things out of proportion all the time, right? When they see a couple arguing and things like that, they immediately say, oh, he's the problem, or oh, she's the problem. When you see two people, having a fight physically, they immediately assume that that person started it, and then they create some conspiracy theory as to why it was that person and why it wasn't the other person. people have a way of construing things the wrong way and taking things the wrong way without having backup as to what actually happened, right? And so when you're trying to this when you're trying to spot a narcissist in public, it's very easy to point the finger and say, oh, that person's a narcissist because look at that guy, he's yelling at his wife and making a scene in front of everybody, and or his wife or his girlfriend or whomever, that guy's yelling and he's making a scene out of nothing, right? We immediately assume that he's the narcissist, right? Or flip it, if it's a woman, she's there yelling at her husband, and we immediately think that many people immediately think, oh, she's a narcissist because she's creating a scene and she's yelling and screaming at him in front of everyone. Well, I wouldn't be so fast. I would not so fast. I wouldn't be so quick to assume that either of them are the narcissist. Although it could be that either of them could be the narcissist. But what I'm saying is that it's not always the case. It's not always true, right? Because maybe what could be happening is that guy's yelling because maybe he got provoked. Maybe she provoked him, reactive abuse, where she kept pushing his buttons and then, he just blew up because he just couldn't take it anymore. Right now, I don't condone people, yelling and screaming in public because I think it's inappropriate. I think that it disturbs the peace. It disturbs everybody's time because people are just trying to live their lives. And then you got somebody screaming and yelling, it ruins everybody's day, right? It makes people feel bad. It makes people, not feel good, right? So I don't condone that. But what I'm also saying is that, there are times when people need to get their feelings out, right? And sometimes that includes yelling and screaming. And so, if that guy's yelling and screaming and making a scene, maybe don't be so quick to assume that he's the narcissist. Maybe the woman that he's dealing with is the narcissist and she provoked him and now he's upset. Now, again, it could be flipped, and if maybe the guy is yelling because he is the narcissist and he is making a scene on purpose, right? But what I'm saying here, guys, and the reason why I'm creating this video is to just let you know that not everything is as it seems, right? Not all that glitters is gold, right? You can't just assume, things right off the bat and then call that person or say something like, oh, just because he's black, he acts this way, and black people are known for being, loud, and you're accusing him for this and that. That's not fair, right? Because you're assuming things without knowing, the full story, right? And we as a society, we need to get away from that, right? From assuming things before even knowing the whole story. Because before you assume things, there could have been things that happened that you don't even know about, right? Or let's get off the topic of fighting, for example. Let's say that we have this idea of somebody going through a divorce. Ooh, this is a good one. I'm going to take you guys there. Let's say that two people, a husband and wife, are going through a divorce. And let's say that, we have people that assume that he was the reason why they divorced, or she was the reason why they divorced, or your family. Let's say that you're getting a divorce and your family, they quickly, point fingers at, at you because you're the reason why, you guys got a divorce when they don't even know what happened. Right? They weren't there to actually witness what happened. Right? Now, I'm not trying to say, if it's your family, right, and your family's good, that they should immediately side with you. They should be hearing both people's side of the story, right? So that both people can air their laundry, and that you can hear both sides without, taking sides, without knowing the full story, right? You need to know both sides first, right? So that's why I'm creating this video, to let you know that you can see patterns, in people, recognize patterns. So if you see that somebody, is making fun of someone, right, and they're doing it, on purpose, and like I said, it's become a pattern. I'm not trying to say that if it's the first time you see them make fun of them, that you quickly point fingers. There could be a reason why. Maybe that the other person makes fun of them too, and then that person's just retaliating. I don't know, but don't assume that, right? The other thing too, so going back to what I was saying here, is that when it comes down to recognizing the patterns, you start to see this over and over and over again, right? Maybe that friend that you're getting involved with, if they just did it one time, and let's say that they didn't show up to your the birthday party that they said they were going to go to, and let's say they didn't show up but they had a reason. They said, look, I can't show up this time just because something came up in my life. That's understandable. We get that. But what I'm saying is that look for patterns. If this starts becoming an ongoing thing where every time you have a party, they make up an excuse. And they start, and it starts feeling like, you're trying to drag them to the party, and they're making an excuse. Then you can probably guess that they're probably a narcissist, right? Because narcissists love to make excuses. They like to, make it seem as though, sorry, they narcissists know that they have a high sense of entitlement, right? Where they believe that they should be able to do whatever they want whenever they want to, right? But it's another thing entirely when, when it comes down to, the patterns, right? So that's because that's what we're talking about, right? Finding patterns, right? If something seems like it's happening over and over and over again, right, then that's a huge red flag. Let's say that you loan somebody money, right? And let's say that, you and that person, you agreed that that person was going to pay you back, right? And that person, let's say the first time they didn't pay you back, right, for some reason, but then but they told you the reason why I didn't pay you back is just because this and that, whatever thing that they said. I'm not going to decide that here. They said but they have a legitimate reason why they couldn't pay you back. But then the next time that they ask you for money, you loan the money, and then this time it's the same thing, and they don't pay you back. So it becomes a reoccurring theme where they start where it's happening over and over and over again. Now you can guess that, okay, this person, I'm probably dealing with a narcissist, because this is happening over and over and over again. Because you have to understand that narcissists, they do that same playbook with everybody all the time. That's all they can do. The same love bomb, devaluation, and discard, right? They do the same thing all the time, right? And they do it with everybody all the time. So when that person, they're asking you for money, right? When they're love bombing you and telling you all the things that you need to know, and then they disappear. They're devaluing you by not answering your calls, not, by ghosting you, not answering you, and them trying to get a hold. The narcissist is sitting there with their phone, and they're saying, "Look at this person. Why are they messaging me? Why are they calling me?" And then the narcissist runs away. Then you know that that person's probably a narcissist. Right? So what I'm saying here, guys, and again, the reason why I'm creating this video is just to let you guys know that you shouldn't automatically just assume everything about everybody, right? Because not everything that glitters is gold, right? You should always have your facts before you start talking, about this and that, calling somebody a narcissist or calling that person a narcissist and things like that. Again, if you not recognize patterns, right, and you recognize, okay, I've seen this before. This person who's talking to me about, their experience, they're probably not lying, because, the patterns that they're telling me about, it's identical to what I've heard and to what I've seen, and I've actually experienced the same thing before. Then you can bet that that person's probably not a narcissist, right? But it's something that you have to, take note of, right? And again, I'm not trying to say be paranoid and, again, walk around with your checklist and try to figure out if everybody's a narcissist. That's not what I'm trying to say. I'm just trying to say, again, that, if something seems off about a person or a situation, right, you ought to start taking notes, right? Especially if you're in a relationship and you're trying to think about whether you're going to spend the rest of your life with this person, or get married, or maybe it's just a long-term relationship. Maybe you guys don't have plans to get married. Maybe it's just a long-term relationship, right? If you're going in this long-term relationship with this person, and let's say that over time you're starting to realize that something seems off about this person, they start acting this way towards you, they start blaming you for things that you didn't do, or they start bringing up things from the past that you guys said that you would let go of, or they start invalidating you, they start mocking you, they start mocking your your ethnicity, they start mocking, if you have an accent, they start mocking your accent, or they start making snide remarks at you, and or being passive aggressive towards you, then you ought to start taking some notes, right? Then you ought to start trying to figure out, why is this person acting this way. Now, if I were you, I would be careful, if especially if it's a person who's violent, who punches things, or slams their fists on a, what's it called, on a table or something like that. I would be careful, right? Because that could be a malignant narcissist. A malignant narcissists are very dangerous, right? So be very, very careful with the type of person that you recognize this stuff with, right? But what I'm saying here is that, start taking notes. You start taking notes, and you start, watching this person a little closely, and start recognizing the patterns that, that they do it at this time, they do it at that time. And you start noticing a pattern. You start noticing, okay, so every time I ask this person a question, about something, or every time I try to, get the truth out of this person, it always seems like they're flipping it back on me. It always seems like they're, trying to make me the problem when I'm trying to, get an answer from them. Then you know that something is wrong, right? And that's how I figured out that my ex-wife was a narcissist. That's when I started to realize that something was wrong, where what was the lack of accountability, right? Anytime I tried to get her to apologize, right, and try to, get her to, realize that what she did hurt me, what she said was disrespectful to me, and I tried to get her to apologize, then the blame was flipped back on me, and then she would bring up things from the past that I may have did, and then she would start invalidating me, and then storm off and walk away and try to put the blame on me. So then I started taking notes. I started, not notes on paper, but I started, making notes in the back of my mind. And I tried to figure out, okay, so this happened this time. Okay, let's see next time. Then I started, taking notes, and then articles showed up on my phone about, what is gaslighting, what is manipulation, and they start showing up on YouTube too. YouTube videos on how do you differentiate manipulation from gaslighting, and then I started to realize, am I being gaslighted? Am I being manipulated? And then I started to, really, take notes. I started to really pay close attention. And I realized, oh my gosh, I'm actually being gaslighted, right? And then that's when, everything sort of unfolded for me. And then I started recognizing the patterns, and I started to look outside of my marriage, and I started to look at other people as well. And I noticed that it was in my family too. That every time I had a problem and I tried to explain it to my family, I was always being invalidated. They're always, making it seem like I was the problem, that I was the sensitive one. When in real life, it wasn't me, right? It was them, and they didn't want to take accountability. So just to recap, guys. So what I'm talking about here is that, we're talking about pattern recognition, recognizing, those patterns, recognizing the manipulation, recognizing when somebody is gaslighting you, when they're trying to make you doubt your sense of reality. Now, I'm gonna say this, and there's a lot to unpack here, but I'm trying to pack it all in one, just so that it's simpler to understand. When we're talking about gaslighting, and it's very important that you guys understand the difference between somebody gaslighting you and somebody, just saying that, no, that's not what happened, and then they explain what they remember happened. So if you're trying to, get the truth, and you're not being gaslighted, most of the times people will be honest. If they're a healthy, stable person, then they will be honest and say, that's not exactly how I remember it happening. What I do remember is this. I remember that. I remember this. I remember that. And then it's clear and concise. And then you say, okay, maybe this person does have a point. But how you know they're gaslighting you is if they immediately invalidate your experience. If they immediately invalidate you and say, that's not what happened. And then now you're saying, no, that is what happened. Then you show them evidence. And then they say, no, that's not what happened. And then now you're sitting there and you're scratching your head saying, that is what happened. That's how you know when someone's gaslighting you. When, again, they don't want to take accountability, right? So I guess one of the main things here when it comes to pattern recognition, and it comes down to, spotting the narcissist in public, is, you look for the pattern of accountability, right? That's one of your biggest things, is accountability, because that's one thing narcissists can't fake. And that's one thing narcissists can't run from, is accountability, right? When you notice that somebody's being inaccountable for something, and they can't just reason out and have a reasonable adult conversation with you, that's a huge red flag that the person you're dealing with is potentially a narcissist. And that's somebody that you don't want to waste your time with, because eventually they're going to make you the problem. And then you're going to look like the crazy one, right? Because that's what narcissists want. They want everybody else to think that they are crazy. And in fact, narcissists, a lot of the times, they tell on themselves. They say, oh, one of the things my ex-wife said was, watch out for the crazies. Be careful of the crazies. And then I said to her, months later, I said, maybe we should watch out for you, because you're the one that's acting crazy, right? So that's after I started noticing, the inaccountability, and then, the acting erratical about certain things. You know what I'm saying? So you start realizing these things over time, right? It's not like right away you start recognizing them. It's an overtime thing. It's a steady thing that you just start recognizing, that you just have to, pay close attention to, right? Because narcissists, they show you who they are over time, right? So if they when and Maya Angelou made this quote that said, "When they show you who they are the first time, believe them, because that's who they are often." Right? Now, when it comes down to that phrase, it's true. But what I would say is that, you have to use your discernment. You have to, think to yourself. If something seems off at first, it's good to question it. Think about this for a second. Think about your health. Ooh, that's a good one. Think about your health for a quick second. When there's something going wrong with you, like let's say that you have a sore throat, or let's say that you have a headache, or let's say that you have stomach problems with your stomach, or so let's say that you notice that when you walk you feel a little pain in your knee or something like that. I don't know, I'm just making things up. Maybe you can add a couple of things to this list, but let's just say that you notice something's off about your health. When something's off about your health, don't you go and see a doctor? Well, I hope you do. I hope you go and see a doctor and don't push it under the rug. If something's wrong with your health, you want to figure out what's wrong with you, right? If your vision starts getting, blurry a little bit, then you go to an optometrist, or people who deal with, vision, and you try to figure out or an orthodont, whatever the name of that is. You go and figure out, if you need glasses or not. It's the same thing with, pattern recognition. If you start seeing that something is wrong, that something is off, you ought to question it and try to figure out, am I losing my mind? Am I going crazy? Then you start getting the answers to those questions, right? But you do that by recognizing the patterns. You recognize that, this person did it this time, and now they're doing it this time, but now they're doing it the next time. Maybe so there is something wrong with that person. I'm not losing my mind. So then you start to realize, okay, that perhaps this person is in fact a narcissist, right? So that's why you have to, pay attention, right? Don't just assume right away, or don't just, when a problem arises, right? Don't just, if you're in a relationship with someone and a problem arises, and you guys are having an argument, let's say, don't immediately assume that the person's a narcissist, or just because this person, has is a little bit different than you are, or they, think about things differently. Don't just assume that they're a narcissist. Get to know the person first. There's too much of this nonsense going on, where people are assuming things about people, and then in a friendship, let's say, or in a workplace setting, for example, and then they just assume things, that just because this person's not good at that, or that's just because this person can't do that, oh, this person's a narcissist because, oh, they don't want to do that. Don't assume. Like, stop assuming stuff, right? Because when you assume stuff, you get yourself in trouble, and then you get the other person in trouble when they didn't have to be trouble in the first place, right? So this video is a very important video, and I encourage you to share it with somebody who you think could use this knowledge, because this is important, right? It is very, very important, right? That you recognize the patterns, and don't just throw the word narcissist around just because the word narcissist is there. Don't just throw the word gaslighting around because it's there. Don't just throw the word manipulation around just because it's there. Don't just throw the word projection around, or mirroring, or something like that around just because it's there. Don't just throw words around like that. Don't assume. Look for the patterns. Start looking for patterns, in people's behavior, right? Before you start pointing the finger, and then, or start siding with somebody, right? Because a lot of the times, and I'm going to mention this before I close the video, which is really, really important. A lot of the times, the very person that you're siding with is the same person who will eventually destroy your life too. Ooh, I'm going to say that again. Sometimes the very person that you're siding with is the very person that will eventually destroy your life too, if you're not careful, right? So that's why it's better not to assume. Better to have all the facts first before drawing any conclusions, right? Look for the patterns of the pattern recognition. Look for the patterns, right? Look for the things that seem off, right? And then start questioning them, right? And then look at the other person's, side of the story, and then now you can form your basis and say, maybe that person isn't the narcissist. Maybe the other person's the narcissist. Maybe they're both narcissists. Who knows? Because narcissists, a lot of the times they commiserate together. Doesn't mean that they like each other necessarily, but it means that they commiserate because they love the idea of competing. Because narcissists love to compete, right? They compete with other narcissists too. That's the other thing too, right? Doesn't mean they like each other because narcissists don't love and they don't like anyone, but it means that they have someone to commiserate with and to, validate them for that time. And then they just move on to a next person, right? Yeah, so that's what I wanted to talk about today, guys. Pattern recognition and can you spot the narcissist in public? Those are some of the ways that you can spot one in public. Like I said again, don't readily just assume things. Always have the facts. Always look at both sides of the coin. Look for patterns of behavior in people before you start assuming things about them, right? Because sometimes not everything that glitters is gold. Not everything that seems the way it is there in front of you, it's not. Sometimes it's not that way, right? Sometimes there's more to the story that that you probably don't even know happened. That's how all this fake news gets being spread around the place, and people just believe the fake news because the fake news is spread around by people readily assuming stuff without getting the full story. Right? So that's why you have to use your discernment. You have to recognize whether a person's true or whether a person's a false prophet, a liar, rather, is what we call them. So that's what I wanted to talk about today, guys. Thank you so much again for joining me here on Narcissism 101, Cracking the Code with me, Paul Wisdom. Like I said before, if you'd like a one-on-one session, please email me, paul.wisdom_03@hotmail.com, or send a text message 647-406-3057. Like I said, if you want to talk, if you want to vent, if you need some more advice, if you're trying to figure out whether the person you're dealing with is a narcissist or not, please feel free to reach out to me. Just remember, please do not call the number. I may just block the number if you call, unless there's a message attached to it. Please just text the number, let me know your name, let me know you've been watching my videos, and then I can help you out. So thank you guys so much for joining me here today on Narcissism 101, Cracking the Code with me, Paul Wisdom. I hope to see you on the next video. Take care and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so much.